the Applied Linguistics and Communication Research Companion. I am Sandra, your host, and in this opportunity I'm going to talk to my colleague and friend, Dr. Alina Shartner. She's going to tell us about Research File 2.
Right, so Research File 2 is an oral presentation that all our CCC students have to do. It's part of the research portfolio, so it's an integral part of your dissertation component, really. So it's a very, very short oral presentation, and it is focused on a research methodology. So it's not about essay writing, it's about one specific methodology that you are supposed to evaluate from a critical perspective in an oral format.
What do you mean when you say evaluation from a critical perspective? What does that mean to you as a researcher and evaluator of this Research File 2?
Right, so essentially when you do your Research File 2s, we want you to do two things. One is, we want you to very briefly just describe the methodology. Say, for example, if you're doing conversation analysis, tell us what conversation analysis is, but only very briefly, because what we're really interested in is your evaluation. So this means talking about the pros and cons of the research method, what is it useful for, how is it being used by CCC researchers. So really it's going beyond simply saying what the methodology is and what it involves, but talking about its merits, its benefits, but also its shortcomings and limitations. So I would say it's about looking at the methodology with a critical eye and trying really to unpack the methodology.
So not only reporting on what they read, but also have this critical eye to evaluate the methodology and see if that is useful for what they want to do.
Exactly. So how is this methodology used in CCC research? What kind of research is it suitable for? What kind of research is it perhaps not so suitable for? And what do you, as future researchers, how would you evaluate the methodology, its pros and cons, and its strengths and weaknesses?
Why is Research File 2 beneficial for our students?
Okay, so the Research File 2, as you will see, is of course a very different format to a standard essay, because it's not written and you are actually presenting something orally to a panel of examiners. One of the rationales for Research File 2 is that, first of all, talking about a methodology is very different to writing about a methodology. So it's a different medium which allows the students to hone a different skill. So it's not your skill of writing, but it's your skill of presenting, and it's your skill of trying to condense a lot of information into 10 slides, 10 PowerPoint slides, and talk about a complex topic like a research method in 12 minutes. And that, condensing key information and then delivering that information competently, is a very, very important skill for master students to have. So I would say you, as future graduates, will benefit from training your presentation skills, from being able to convey a complex issue concisely and competently, which is hopefully a transferable skill also for future careers. So for those of you who are thinking about pursuing PhD research after your MA, it's a key research skill to have, to be able to talk about research methods. And if you attend conferences in the future, it's the bread and butter, really, of being a researcher, to go and talk about academic topics in front of an audience. So this is what Research File 2 allows you to do. I should also say, it's also, even though it is assessed, we very much see it also as a formative exercise, because it allows you to get to grips with a particular research method before you then use that method in your Research File 3. So it's almost like it's a pre-exercise to actually collecting data. You carefully scrutinizing the merits and benefits of one particular method. It leads into your research file 3, it prepares you for research file 3, and it really allows you to think about a methodology in a great amount of detail. Right, okay, great question. Lots of our students get a bit nervous, but it's really not that bad. So what happens on the day, you will be assigned a room, so you will go to your particular room that you're scheduled for, you will be called into the room, and the examiners will ask you to set up your presentation. So you'll have a few minutes to gather your thoughts and put your PowerPoint slides on the screen, and the examiners will also explain to you exactly what is going to happen, so they will remind you of the procedures.
So who are these examiners?
So the examiners will be 2 members of staff, and there will be at least 1 member of staff from the CCC core team, and then the second person might be somebody else from the School of Education, Communication and Language Sciences. So you will have 2 experts in the room, 2 examiners, but no other audience.
I will be there in research file 2 this year.
Yes, so we will be 2 of the examiners, of course. So then you begin your presentation, and you have a maximum of 12 minutes to actually deliver the presentation. So that's the actual talking time that you are allotted to. Then there will be 5 minutes of question and answer with the examiners. So the examiners will ask you questions related to what you've just presented to them. They will then send you outside the room to have a discussion and
and what happens in this discussion?
In this discussion, the examiners talk about the impression they got from the student presentation. They will look at the marking criteria and they will decide on a mark. So you will be assessed on content as well as presentation skills. So the examiners will be looking for both, and they will be discussing about the kind of feedback they will want to give you. So after 5 minutes, they will call you back into the room and they will give you feedback on your presentation. They won't give you your actual mark yet. You will receive that.
That's important to know.
A few days later from the research office. But what you will get is some feedback on your presentation. So the examiners will tell you what they liked, what they think you could improve, and just some general thoughts about your presentation skills and the content as well. And then after a few days, you will receive a feedback sheet which has your mark as well as an additional paragraph of written comments. So you will actually get quite a lot of feedback, which is why I said it's also formative. So the examiners are very, very careful to give you more than just simply a percentage. So you will also get quite extensive oral and written feedback.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the evaluation process in RF2? I guess our students there would like to know a little bit more.
Absolutely. This is the interesting part for you. So how are you actually being evaluated on the day? So there are 2 things that the examiners will be looking for. There is content, the content of your presentation, and then there are your presentation skills. Now both have equal importance, so 50% of your mark will be content, 50% of your mark will be presentation skills, so they're equally important. And just to give you a few examples perhaps, so in terms of content, we will be looking for things like evidence of critical thinking, signposting, and things like an awareness of the methodology being used in CCC research, so the link with CCC. In terms of presentation skills, there are non-verbal aspects, elements to do with your voice and intonation, orientation, eye contact, so a range of different categories for both. So equal importance is attached to what is on your slides, what are you telling us about the methodology, but then at the same time we are interested in how do you then deliver this information. So you might have excellent content, but if you read from a sheet of paper like this, it will impact on your mark. Likewise, if you are a very natural presenter, but the content is perhaps not quite there, then that will have an impact on your mark as well. So just remember, both are important, content as well as the skills element of it.
Okay. How can students prepare?
Right. I would say practice is key. So you will be given a very, very strict amount of time. It's very clearly defined, so between 10 and 12 minutes. That's not a lot of time to talk about a complex issue such as research methods. So I would say practice, 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 time yourselves. That is key. So make sure that your presentation fits the time frame. Practice with your peers, with your colleagues, I think is important. Try and get feedback from your friends. Maybe practice as a group. That's what I would say.
Yeah, so students can book rooms here and they can have a mock RF2
absolutely
among themselves. So I think that can be a nice strategy to prepare for this evaluation.
Absolutely. So if you have the opportunity, do try and get together with colleagues who are also doing Research File 2 and try and practice and seek feedback from others. Also try and prepare well in advance, I would say, so that you have an opportunity to revise and refine your presentation in the days leading up to Research File 2. Treat it like you would an essay, in the sense that you read about the topic that you choose and you write your presentation, you prepare your slides, but then you leave time at the end for the delivery, because the delivery you need to practice to make sure you fit the time frame and to make sure you're confident on the day as well. So treat it as an opportunity rather than a chore. It's preparation for Research File 3, it's preparation for job interviews, it's preparation for professional presentations as well. So,
yes. Okay. Can you tell us some insider's tips for preparing for Research File 2?
Insider's tips, let's see. I would say, certainly in terms of timing yourself, a good rule of thumb is, as you practice your presentation, talk about 1 minute per slide. Okay, that's a rule of thumb that professional presenters often use, which would then give you, for a 10-minute presentation, 10 slides. So then you can time yourself. You took 1 minute per slide, and you know you'll fit within the time frame. And it'll give you a little bit of leeway, because remember, you have 12 minutes. So that's one tip that I think works very well in practice. Another tip, slightly trivial on the day, remember to bring your presentation on a USB stick, because remember, you will have half an hour time slot. There will be 10 students in the same room, so what we don't want to happen is everybody to log on and off the computer.
So just ready to go.
Yes, ready to go, bring it on a stick, that's very important. I would also say try and come prepared, in the sense that the examiners are going to be very interested in other researchers' studies, empirical studies that have used your methodology. So make sure you come with at least a couple of examples of empirical research studies that have actually employed the methodology or method that you're talking about. I would also say, just an insider tip is, when you prepare your presentation, make sure you don't spend a lot of time describing the method. Spend the bulk of your time on evaluating the method. So for example, if you choose to talk about how questionnaire data can be collected and analyzed, don't spend 7 minutes talking about how to actually construct a questionnaire, or how to send a questionnaire via email and pencil and paper versions. We're not really interested in that. We are interested in the evaluation of the methodology. So very briefly, by all means, tell us what a questionnaire is, provide a working definition, and briefly tell us the different kinds of questionnaires that are out there. But spend the bulk of the time talking about the strengths and the limitations and ways of analysing questionnaire data. So go beyond simply describing the methodology to actually giving us an in-depth evaluation of that particular approach.
Yeah.
Nobody uses a particular methodological approach randomly. There is a reason for it, and the reason is always a research question. So again, as Sandra says, it's about a rationale, and this is part of the evaluation. So we're interested in hearing you talk about CCC research that has used that particular methodological approach, and why, and what can questionnaires do, for example, that other methodologies do not give you, and vice versa. So it's very much about that, rather than telling us what a questionnaire looks like.
Yeah, or
because
how you
we
can
know
send
that.
it. We know, yes.
We know that. Remember, the people, your examiners are experts in different research methods. They know. What we're interested in is your thoughts and
why you want to use it,
and other researchers' thoughts about that methodology. So that's another tip. Anything that is particularly contested about a research method would be good to highlight. There are always debates in academia.
That's true.
In particular around research methods.
Yes.
So any key issues where researchers have come into conflicts or debates is usually an indication of something worthwhile, interesting happening.
Yeah.
That
investigating and
that you should
presenting as
mention.
well.
On the day, just be confident and try and see it as something positive rather than an assessed assignment.
It is something positive and beneficial.
It is. And it's also a chance for you to talk to the examiners who are experts in the field and get a sense of, is this a methodology or method that you can usefully employ in Research File 3, or perhaps not. So really see it as a developmental activity as well as an assessed assignment.
Great, I look forward to it.
So do I.
Yes, after this brief summary, now I'm looking forward to listening to our students and seeing them presenting. So
absolutely, I think we all look forward to it. So so good luck, and I'm sure you will be doing very well.
Well, thank you, Alina, for your tips and for your time as well. I think this is very useful for students. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Bye.